I know we spoke of your dad, Lou, a little bit. Um, Definitely was around our program when we were coming up, and imparted a lot of wisdom on a lot of us. Obviously, I know the type of man he raised you to be, but talk about his contribution just to Seattle in general. A lot of the kids that obviously weren't his sons, but treated them as such and put them in situations where they could be successful. Give us a little bit of background for people who may not know how important he was to Seattle basketball.
Yeah, I mean, so Seattle is considered like a basketball hub now. But what people don't know is in like the 80s and like early 90s, there wasn't a lot of basketball coming out of the inner city in Seattle, right? There's a guy by the name of Ed Peppel who ran in like a select AU program over on the east side of Seattle, which is like the more affluent area of kind of the greater Seattle area. And there were never a lot of blacks that were part of that program. There'd be like one or two, but it was mostly east side kids, mostly wealthy kids. There weren't a lot of opportunities for inner city kids, especially inner city black kids. And so early on, like late 80s, early 90s, my dad started trying to create opportunities for inner city kids. And he was pretty successful at that. You know, there was a program called CAYA that was early 90s and was kind of the hub for inner city kids playing basketball. But even then, like, it was hard because they were doing a ton of things, trying to fundraise and keep money in the community. He always had this vision of just creating more opportunities for kids in our community, not just for basketball, but using it as a vehicle. And that translated to a ton of, success for not just kids, but the programs he helped start. I mean, people don't know this, but he was actually the first dude to bring quote unquote Nike money into Seattle. He had a team in 97 or 98 that George Raveling helped sponsor at Nike. Players, Eric Vaughn was on that team. Josh Williams, God rest his soul, passed away, was on that team. He had a lot of hoopers on that team. And that was the first time Nike had like really come into Seattle like that on the AU level, grassroots level. George Raveling connected with him on that. And then people don't realize, Friend of Hoop is like a very well-known Seattle program now, but my dad coached the very first Friend of Hoop team with Douglas Wren and Jason King and Kevin Burleson, who's an NBA coach now. My dad coached that first team, so he was always kind of intertwined in a lot of what was going on in the inner city of Seattle. Obviously, he coached Franklin High School, where guys like Jason Terry came out of. So he was always a part of what was going on, trying to build the environment for kids of color, especially in the inner city, to play basketball and to have opportunities. So he meant a lot to a lot of people. I mean, at his funeral, there were a ton of people there, and everyone that spoke was in tears, and it was all men like me and you guys now that just were influenced by the mentorship and the father figure he was to all of us. He meant a lot, and I just think his ability to build people up and provide confidence and, your ability to do whatever you needed to do in life was apparent in the success that so many of his mentees have had.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember him having talks with him on the side, and he just like, hey, man, you got to make sure you develop that jumper. You know what I'm saying?
It only took like 12 years after that.
Yeah. I finally got it though. But man, he was a really good and kind man, and he was always generous, man, and he always had something really positive to say, and that shit went a long way with me, bro. Mm-hmm. So, what I'm saying? Nothing but love for that.
Yeah, definitely. And we spent a lot of time together, and when he would come visit, so yep. I mean, I used to talk to him a lot, and he talk about the point guard spot, talk about Jason Terry. We actually went to see the Hawks play together when they came to town before. But I'm going to put you on the spot really quick. Your Seattle guys may be watching this.
Okay.
You're going down to L.A.
Yeah.
Tough game. You can only take one Seattle guy with you.
Okay.
Who you taking?
In their prime? You got to qualify.
In their prime. Like, as best as you've ever seen them. Like, I know we got this dude. I like my odds. We winning something.
Yeah, the best you ever seen.
So it's crazy, and I'm gonna have to qualify this because I'm gonna go with just Seattle guys. And when I say just Seattle guys, I'm automatically eliminating certain guys like, one guy, Michael Porter is probably the best guy I've seen play in Seattle at the high school level. So I'm gonna eliminate him because he's not really from Seattle. He came there for a year, right? So I'm gonna eliminate him, but I gotta say he was the best high school basketball player I've ever seen in my life, like bar none. So I'm gonna eliminate him, and I'm gonna say in their prime. Now we talk about in their prime, high school, college, or NBA.
You got to win a game in LA, bro.
So I'm gonna say in their prime, like at the height of them playing, I'm gonna say Brandon Roy, no question. If it is a high school game, so if I'm going for who is the player I'm taking to win a high school game, to be honest with you, I'm probably going with Jamal Crawford.
But Jamal grew up in LA too a little bit. So then where?
This is true. He definitely has LA roots. He definitely has LA roots. But I mean, those are the two I'm going with. Yeah. I think Brandon obviously had the overall higher NBA career. Jamal had way more longevity. But that's how things, man. But yeah, I'm rocking with those two.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to talk about, just really quick, we can brush right through it, is a lot of these guys, the Seattle guys, when I talk to my friends and stuff like that, for whatever reason, they think these dudes are from New York. And it's the flair, it's the all that kind of stuff. Do you hear some of that? Like
all the time.
Is there similarities there?
All the time, because it's such a basketball culture. Like, New York has such a basketball culture where it's like kids grow up just playing basketball. It's the same thing in Seattle. I had somebody argue with me that Nate Robinson was from New York. I said he played for New York. From Seattle. I was like, I can guarantee you that. I have people argue with me about that stuff all the time. They don't think guys are from Seattle, or they think they're from New York, or they just think they're from somewhere else. They don't necessarily think they're from Seattle. I definitely think it's just a basketball culture, man. It's second to none, really. I think we support our professional football team and the Seahawks, but growing up, man, it's basketball. It's basketball everywhere in the city. Everyone plays, it touches everything. Basketball players are rock stars. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter if you played in the college level. You walk around Seattle and people pretty much know who you are because it's a small community. Like Seattle's not big like a New York or like LA. Seattle's little over 1 million people, greater Seattle. So it's a smaller market. Everyone pretty much knows each other.